Dave in Nevada, you're on one of the amp lines. Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
What's on your mind?
I had called in, I think, a few times with updates on a case that I had going on for obstruction of an officer, and just to briefly, for people that haven't heard it, I was arrested for obstruction of an officer. The officer claimed I was sitting in a car on private property. They claimed that they asked me to get out of the car, and I said, no, F you. And then they claimed they asked me again, which, of course, wouldn't happen because if I said that once, they dragged me out of the car. They pulled me out of the car. I had huge bruises all over me. And they claimed that they got a call for home invasion, which was ridiculous. They never made a report on it, anything. So they charged me with obstruction of an officer. I took it to trial. Of course, you don't get a jury trial in the state of Nevada for a misdemeanor sentence where the maximum penalty is 6 months in jail, $1,000 fine. So I appealed that to district court, appealed it to the Nevada Supreme Court. And I guess when you appeal to the Nevada Supreme Court, it doesn't stay the decision, so the minor court decision still applied. Although when I was in court in May, when I was going to file it, they scheduled, I have to take impulse control classes, which is ridiculous. It should be the officers that have to take it.
So just to clarify what happened here, you were pulled over and dragged.
I was in a car on private property, just sitting in the car.
Just sitting in the car. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were told to leave the car, and you didn't leave in the way the officer wanted you to leave, and they pulled you from the car?
Well, that's what they claim. I mean, basically, they came up to the car, with a gun pretty much pointed at my head, because that's the level the hand would be when I'm sitting in a car. And it was more like, questioning, well, why are you, what did I do? Why are you here bothering me, whatever? And they didn't like that. So they just ripped me out of the car. Now, they say that they asked me to get out of the car, and that they asked me twice, but that wasn't the case. But what they said was because I didn't get out of the car when they asked, they said that's obstructing their investigation that they never made, because there was never any report on anything else.
And you were convicted of that at the district court and then a slightly higher court level?
Well, at the Las Vegas City Court. Then from there, I appealed it to district court. Then they, just agreed with the judge, and then I appealed it to the Nevada Supreme Court.
Right, and then that's where you're telling us the district court, even though you've appealed, the sentence moves forward. So what was the sentence in that case?
The municipal court, not the district court, because it went back to the first court.
Okay.
So it was a $1,000 fine, which is actually $1,137 because they add some fees in or something.
After tax.
And what do you call it? Yeah. Impulse control class, which cost $315, 90-day suspended sentence. So they actually scheduled the classes the last time I was at court to tell them I was appealing to the Supreme Court. My lawyer told me that it didn't matter because I appealed to the Supreme Court. So I guess I found out today that that's not the case.
Oh, no.
But I did go online, and I found out that online they posted that they're not going to take the case anyway, although they haven't notified my lawyer yet.
Hold on. So just to clarify, when the Supreme Court doesn't take a case, it means the lower court ruling stands.
Well, it does anyway. Yeah, but I mean, it does anyway until they rule on it, and that's what I was saying. That even though
now
you
they've
appeal
decided
to the Supreme
they're
Court,
not going to take the case.
If I could, what exactly was it that you were appealing to the higher court? You're saying that because you didn't get a jury trial on the B misdemeanor, is this what you're appealing? Was the grounds for your appeal?
I don't know what my lawyer filed as a specific grounds for the appeal.
This is one of the issues with having an attorney is that a lot of people who hire the attorney, they don't know what the attorney's doing. And they really, they don't have any training in law. I don't have any training in law, but I've been, learned the hard way. And if I have an attorney, and I have had an attorney a couple of times, I want to read everything that guy's filing. I want to know what he's saying, what he's doing on my behalf. That guy is so-called representing me in this crazy legal land system. And I want to make sure I'm satisfied with that attorney's ability to think and write out legal paperwork and things like that. So if you don't know what your attorney is doing and you're filing to Supreme Court, that sounds like it could be an expensive thing to do. I don't know what you've spent. Yeah. So what
I did get actually anybody can read what they filed. It's online.
Sure, but you should be the one who's reading it.
And I don't remember off the top of my head what the argument was.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, what have you paid, by the way, for this attorney's services? And has he been your attorney through the whole way, through every court level of the court?
Yes and no. So I actually wrote this down because I knew you were going to ask me that. So the first, I had a lawyer at the municipal court level first, but I had him for the municipal court as well. So in the middle of the municipal court case, I switched lawyers. So my first lawyer gave me a discount because it was a friend's brother's law firm. So they had charged me $600. Then, and this is only because also it's in the city court. If it was higher in district court, it would be more money. Mm-hmm. But $600. Then to actually go to trial in the city court, I paid the new lawyer $1,000, so that was $1,600. So then to appeal to district court, it was $1,500 and then $300 for transcripts. How they
so we're up to $3,000 so far, roughly $3,000 so far.
3,400.
Yep. All right.
Then $2,500 to the Supreme Court, regardless of whether they take the case or not.
So you pay $2,500 to the Supreme Court to ask them if you can appeal, and then they tell you no, and that's non-refundable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's
I
amazing.
haven't paid all of it yet, but yes, I owe them $1,250. So that's
you went into debt.
$5,900.
You went into debt with the Supreme Court. How did they? What did they take a payment plan from you? How does that work out?
No, that's my lawyer. Like I paid. I've had the same lawyer, so I paid $1,250 up front for the Supreme Court, and I paid him everything else, so I still owe him half.
So he paid, just to be clear, the $2,500 wasn't just the filing fee at the Supreme Court. That was whatever the filing fee is plus the attorney's fees to file. Is that what you were saying?
It was. I mean, I just gave him $2,500 in total.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. So where are we at now? We're at $8,000. I've lost track.
So that's $5,900 right there, right?
$5,900.
But
okay.
Then I got extorted by. It goes back to the city court. So I'm getting extorted by them. It's $1,137, and the maximum fine's $1,000. That's what they gave me, and then they throw their fees on there.
Final damage, attorney's fees, court fees, the actual sentenced fee. We're talking about close to $8,000. $8,000.
Close $3,752.
I'm sorry, what?
73. Sorry, I'm dyslexic.
So about $7,500, and ultimately all of this you paid to lose the case.
Yeah, I could have, I guess, took their ridiculous plea deal and, said I did something I didn't and paid, I think, probably like $600 and then $600 to the first lawyer, maybe about $1,200.
And how do you feel about paying $8,000 to go through this experience? In fact, I'd like you to answer that when we come back. Hang on, Dave, if you can stick with us. More with Dave in Nevada. 855-450 free. I'll be going to court next month, and I will not have an attorney. This is Free Talk Live. So we've got Dave on the line. He's calling from Nevada. Got a charge of an obstructing government administration, the equivalent of whatever that is there in Nevada. This is
obstruction of an officer.
Obstruction of an officer. Yeah. And this was a misdemeanor charge, not a Class A or whatever the equivalent is there in Nevada. Do you have a different
It'd be
classes?
better if it was, because then I would have got a jury trial.
Right. So they set it at a level at which you could not have a jury trial, which is very common here in New Hampshire as well. You went to the bench trial, you lost. And then you had an attorney the entire time. You actually had a couple different attorneys, but ultimately you lost at the district court. You lost at the city court. You lost at the district court. Supreme Court wouldn't hear the case, and so the case was remanded back to the city court. They imposed their fine, and ultimately you spent approximately $7,400 on various attorneys' fees and court filing fees and the fine as well. Is that pretty much a summation of where we've been so far?
Yeah, and along with that, I spent 2.5 days in jail. I had huge bruises all over me.
From being manhandled by the police?
Yeah, from thrown on the ground, knee in my back. I also had, my hand was numb for about 2 months because they had handcuffed me to a chair for about 5 hours. Not to mention all the stress and dealing with it. And, so it's just, it'd be one thing, not that it's okay for the government to extort you and do all these things, regardless of what you do. But, I mean, if it was a real crime that had a victim or something like that, that's, one thing. But, I mean, this is basically, a crime against it's a crime created by the state. I mean, it's really all it is. This is something I didn't even do. But.
This is like we've heard. I have friends who have been arrested for resisting arrest.
Yep.
That they're
and
arresting you,
right?
Yeah, exactly. That this is your only charge.
Right.
Like, what is the crime that you're arresting me for? If my charge is for resisting arrest, I mean, what was the officer doing that he's now being obstructed? Well, I obstructed him and harassing me and bothering me without cause, and it's unfortunately entirely too common. We were actually like talking like during the break. I'm like, it would seem to me, I hope that you never have to go through this again, right? Obviously, and I hope that none of our listeners ever have to go through anything like this. But if you do, I would encourage all of you to try to understand what it is that your attorney is doing. I understand that it can be like extraordinarily difficult. When you told me that you had that you were not sure what your grounds for your appeal were, this like blew my mind. It's like as if you went to like a mechanic and he just said, your car is mess. Give money, and like you just handed imagine you just handed a mechanic $7,000 because he said that you had some problem. Like we would generally expect anybody in any other profession to give us some explanation of what it is that they were doing that we were paying them for. And however, for some reason, like people see like attorneys as people who you just pay them and they just do stuff. You just pay them and they do stuff, and like they're some of the most dishonest people in the world, and people put more trust in them than anybody. It's amazing to me.
Watch out.
Right, and I didn't. It's not that I did that. I mean, from initially, and that's why I changed lawyers because I didn't feel like they were doing enough, and I did pay a lot of attention. And then just even after being found guilty initially, which was totally ridiculous because the judge even looked at all the pictures of these bruises, and when I say from my wrist to my elbow is like a huge bruise, and I posted some pictures online as well, but. For them to come to that conclusion there, and it is just insane. So I did to a point, and that is my fault, and I know better because I've dealt with
when you
lawyers
first met with the attorney.
Paid more attention to it. But.
So there was one attorney who kind of carried you through most of these, right? You said there was a first guy, and you dumped him.
Well,
and you brought.
Yeah, the first guy though was only in the city court, so he just took it to right before trial. Because once I decided,
and then you brought another one in for the trial. Now, the one that you brought in for the trial, when you met with him and you laid out your case, what did he say to you? I mean, did he say to you, yeah, this is winnable? Or did he say, this probably isn't going to happen, but I'll do it for you? What was his pitch?
No, it's been, because this has actually happened 2 years ago now. So well, actually over 2 years. It was Memorial Day weekend 2012. I think it was more because I actually talked to a couple lawyers because my initial lawyer, as I said, he didn't seem like he wanted to go to trial. He was just like, well, why don't you just plead out? And I'm like, no. So, I don't remember what he said, but he definitely didn't say, well, we can definitely win this. I think it was more, well, you may have a case here. You could win or
kid, you want to take this to trial? I'll take it to trial. That kind of thing.
Yeah, they always say that.
If my attorney's not excited about something, I don't want him to take the case. I don't want to pay an attorney who's not excited about a case, who doesn't think. I mean, I don't generally want to pay an attorney at all.
The vast majority of them they're just agents to turn in your plea bargain.
So looking back on this, what would you do differently if this happened again?
You know what? In this case, being that it's such a minor thing, I don't know that I would have hired an attorney, period, and I would have just done some research on my own. And if I did, I would have went out of state.
The worst case, before you go on.
I'm not out of state, out of Las Vegas, and went, got a lawyer that doesn't work with all these judges and these, is not friends with all these people.
So in the worst case scenario, if you hadn't hired an attorney, remember, because you did have an attorney, the whole process was $7,400. I mean, from beginning to finish. And if you hadn't hired an attorney, you did point out you could have taken a plea deal and paid $600, or you could have not taken the plea and just gone to trial yourself and likely have paid, like you said, the final fine was $1,000 something plus whatever filing fees you'd have had to have paid to the courts. Probably would have clocked in at around $2,000 instead of $7,400. So, I mean, I just feel like I understand court is scary. I get it. But if you're willing to face the consequences, and you're going to have to face them, whether or not you have an attorney is not going to matter in a lot of cases. If you're willing to face down the consequences and you can't find an attorney who's like jazzed about your case, take it on your own and give it your best shot.
This is not legal advice.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for the call tonight, Dave. I wish you the best out there. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. It's certainly not advice attorneys want given out. I mean, they don't want anybody to say don't get an attorney. They don't want you to go this alone because they want to hold your hand, like Mark suggested, in a lot of cases through a plea deal, or in this case through the entire process, which ultimately was a loss. And maybe you want to share with us your story of how you got hosed by an attorney. I'm sure there's no shortage of stories like that when you've hired an attorney and it didn't quite turn out the way you expected.
Well, I mean, the fact is these capitals, Washington, D.C. and every state capital, these places are maybe not New Hampshire, but still, most of these places are lawyer industrial complexes. Mm-hmm. They churn out laws that require the average individual to get an attorney. They're lawyers creating laws that require people to hire lawyers. What a surprise.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.